Cobra Kai. What makes it so successful? What makes it so popular? Is it the nostalgia? The action? The tournaments? The character redemptions?
Hey, Lip. Yeah, you. The one with the freaky lip. You hear that, Lip? Lip. You one of those challenged kids? Lip.
In fairness, this is a more than accurate portrayal of karate senseis. The Karate Kid is one of the most beloved trilogies of all... it's one of the most beloved franchises of all time. The first Karate Kid was such a major success that it's often credited for popularizing karate in America. The term "sweep the leg" is one of the most iconic lines that people still quote today, hopefully for a light-hearted occasion. It's remembered for a lot of reasons: the music, the performances. Its themes of bullying being portrayed with grounded realism made a lot of people strongly identify with the story. It was almost like a superhero film, but without any of the superpowers involved. There have been many parodies made of the Karate Kid. A remake with Jackie Chan was made, also called The Karate Kid, even though there is no karate in the film. And then YouTube Premium released a show set 34 years after the events of the first Karate Kid. It was called Cobra Kai, and it focused on the antagonist from the Karate Kid as the central character, Johnny Lawrence. This is a neat idea. To follow a character who was pretty much seen as the archetype 80s high school villain be the front and center stage of a TV show, it would make sense to follow his journey, because you would presume that Daniel has pretty much succeeded in life. There is no major obstacle to overcome for him, but for Johnny there's a whole mountain to climb. And since the success of Stranger Things, what a perfect time to release a show based around 80s nostalgia. But the big question was, how do you translate the themes of the Karate Kid into the 21st century? How do you change the energy and spirit of Cobra Kai without coming off as awkward or cringeworthy?
Who did this? Cobra Kai?
I guess it was always going to be difficult to pull off, but let's start from season 1, which is arguably the best season of the series. Johnny Lawrence is this down-on-his-luck loner living in poor conditions. All of a sudden he develops a sensei-student bond with the new neighbour Miguel, who, surprise surprise, is having a hard time adjusting at school because of bullying. So these two characters parallel Daniel and Miyagi. We know how the story will progress from here, but it's slightly different because Johnny is a more fleshed out character trying to rectify his past. His road to redemption is what keeps us engaged in the story, and the karate elements propel the excitement into the story. But where Cobra Kai differs from Karate Kid is what throws me off about the show. The tone is quite goofy, and this reflects on the characters. They may go through various changes, but it's done in a way that feels cliched and comically unrealistic. Johnny Lawrence and Miguel are the only characters that I can follow with interest, and season 1 thankfully focuses on them for the most part. Their dynamic was great because Johnny had been a poor father in the past and is now fulfilling the paternal role by being a father figure to a kid that has lived his whole life without one. This was the highlight of the show. The family dynamics mixed with the thrilling life of karate made for a great concept. And you throw in Daniel's storyline and his family, you'd think it would be even better. But the series chooses to divert in this corny and sappy tone, which does not benefit the themes that Karate Kid explored with any sense of creativity. They like to make fun of the fact that Johnny is out of touch with the modern world, which is the most amusing part of the show, when he is completely oblivious about social media and political correctness. But when they explore this comedy with just the kids, you can really tell how out of touch the writers are with modern high school tropes. So the first season was a clear success that saw Cobra Kai rise to the top. But at what point did it begin to fall? What was the catalyst that caused the show's downfall? Okay, I say downfall, that might be an exaggeration. It's more of a disappointment. The stuff that I found cringe and annoying in the first season just gets more time in the second. But this is the moment they really messed up for me.
That the real story's only just begun.
Don't get me wrong, it was great that they brought him back, but it's the way they did it. It was so cartoonish. Is this the first time he's seen the hammer? What's with this reaction? Close your mouth, you're creeping me out. Oh, come on, I've never seen someone heal their arm after manual labour. He should be resting it, not making it worse. This just shows me that Daniel is just using the kids to help him beat his high school rival without any concern of their well-being. Maybe Daniel was the villain this whole time. He even stole away Johnny's kid like the child catcher. But in fairness, he's a better replacement than that sack of potatoes. We have this stupid love affair that goes on between Miguel, Sam, Robbie and Tori. It's a very unnecessary and cheap plot device to cause friction between the four. So much so to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if Miguel and Robbie just ended up as a couple. I mean, why not? Do a 13 Reasons Why. Just conveniently make them gay for the sake of the show's ratings. I mean, you can already see the sexual tension simmering when they're on screen together. Kreese is pretty much the villain of the second season. It adds extra conflict with Daniel and Johnny's rivalry. I thought the scenes between Johnny and Kreese were well done. We saw how manipulative Kreese is to Johnny to get into Cobra Kai, but again the father-son relationship comes into play here as well, which is why Johnny lets him in the first place. Just when you think the show is going in the right direction, they bring this guy into the mix.
Sorry I'm late. Traffic on the 118 was a real bitch.
At this point, I think the creators of Cobra Kai were just embracing the goofiness from the Karate Kid movies and just turned them up to 11. They managed to take the best and worst aspects from the films. The grounded and well-balanced structure of the first Karate Kid is a perfect template for you to adapt into the series, but you also chose to adapt the silliness of the sequels as well. And the show's realism is just completely thrown out of the window with the amount of fight sequences between the kids that really should have ended with many of them dying, and many of them going to jail. The fight at the school summed up this show in a nutshell. You could argue it was fun to watch, but for me, this is not what Karate Kid is about. I mean, the consequences that lie ahead in season 3 following this fight were non-existent. Everyone was still the same, apart from Robbie, who practically killed Miguel, but everyone else was fine. Even Miguel. Seriously, how is he not dead from this? Only one kid left the school, and that's more down to the fact that her character was not popular with the fans, so they had to find a way to write her out of the main story.
Hey, buddy. Sorry I haven't been here.
He looks like he belongs in a cartoon hospital. Okay, let's take a minute to talk about Daniel's family. None of them are interesting, the wife is just an NPC, the son should be sent to juvenile, and they try way too hard to develop the daughter, but she's just so boring. They shouldn't have made her this all-perfect can't go wrong daughter. I think it would have been far more interesting to have her more rebellious and uncaring. She could be an outcast that doesn't feel like she fits in anywhere, but when someone threatens her, she can easily take them on. And that would subsequently get her in trouble, causing conflict with Daniel. And then we would be able to see that Daniel's perfect family man life that Johnny sees from the outside is actually very difficult to manage. Again, we get this exaggerated fight during a house party. I mean, they could have choreographed these sequences with a bit of logic. Doing flips and snapping people's arms aren't even karate. It's like they're auditioning for pro wrestling.
Time for you and Miyagi to reunite.
This show just keeps finding a way to add cheesy lines and far-fetched scenes. The adults are worse than the kids. Even Daniel's at fault. He's always going on about what a great guy Miyagi was. But a lot of this show is just him ignoring everything he's been taught. And you know what? There's no threat of any character dying in this show. Especially after seeing someone fall 20 feet onto a handrail. The show also brings back characters from the sequels. They're a nice throwback and it doesn't feel forced, apart from some characters. But in season 4 they bring out the mother of memorable villains from the franchise, Terry Silver. But this time, he's different. He's changed his ways. He's a man of peace, content with his new life of... Okay, never mind, it only took 30 minutes. But somehow one visit from Kreese is enough to drive him crazy. Now this character was just a spoof in a Karate Kid movie that was just a complete mess with no sense of direction. It felt like a fan fiction piece and Terry Silver is the quintessential archetype of a fan fiction villain. They try to force a way to develop Daniel's son, Anthony. He's basically bullying this kid, Kenny, and they have a whole episode dedicated to this storyline. It wasn't even a realistic portrayal of bullying. Every time they show a kid doing something remotely nerdy or dressing up in some cosplay, they're just immediately going to get abuse. I feel like no research has gone into how bullying in modern high schools actually go down, but at least it's more accurate than 13 Reasons Why. So this whole season leads up to the big tournament. Yeah, so the Hawk guy wins and Miguel leaves the country. A completely normal reaction to losing a local junior competition. I can honestly see the appeal of Cobra Kai in many aspects. There are many betrayals and turning sides that would cause a lot of shocks and gasps, but there's so many goddamn people changing allegiances. It makes you question their loyalty. They're all a bunch of backstabbers, especially Robbie. He just floats from one faction to the next in every season. We get more betrayals when Kreese is thrown under the bus by Silver, and after being his rival in the second Karate Kid, Chozen joins Daniel's cause to take down Cobra Kai. When I watched the first episode of Cobra Kai, I would never expected the chaos that ensued in the following seasons. And if I did know it would be like that, then I would never have watched the show. I mean, just little things like these thieves from season 5 who just aren't real people. I mean, what kind of scenario is this? They are an obstacle to Johnny and Robbie in search of Miguel, and it's just an excuse to force another needless fight. So many of these subplots occur throughout the show. I guess what I wanted from this show was not something most people would be on board with. I would have preferred a more intimate look at Johnny and Daniel's lives, trying to balance the hectic chaos of their families which conflicts with their passion for karate. Kind of like how Tony Soprano balances his mobster life with his family life, but in a less violent and graphic way. Regardless of what I prefer, the messages in this show are very questionable. Learning karate is about self-defense, but it's also about avoiding fights and looking to resolve conflicts without violence. What this series teaches me is that if I don't get something I want, then I have no choice but to beat up the person who's stopping me from reaching that goal. In conclusion, I see that Cobra Kai is a series that is just meant to be fun and entertaining, but season by season it just feels like the quality of the show has declined because it sacrifices dramatic beats for fan service moments.